Yes, ma'am.
All right, great. Um, let's discuss the syllabus first. Although this is something that I have already discussed many times, however, let's talk about it one more time. Let me share my screen with you all. Um, okay, can you all see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
This is
Yes, Yes,
actually
ma'am. ma'am.
good. This is actually your Moodle account, um, and this should look like when you go to your Moodle account, it should look like the screen that you see here. Now it includes everything. Your midterm includes each and everything that you see here. Now you see, starting from the beginning of the semester, actually from the second folder, which is related to an intro of communication models, all basic communication models, Dance helical model, Gardner model, then stimulus response model, two-step flow model, diffusion of innovation model, agenda setting model, media dependency model, uses and gratifications, gatekeeping model. This include Galtung and Rook's gatekeeping model as well. All right, starting from the first folder until here, everything is included in your midterm exam. Galtung and Rook's model is the one that we discussed in our last class. We could not finish it. We could not discuss its last slide. For that reason, I have omitted only that part of the model. The rest of the model, however, is the part of the syllabus for this exam. Let me tell you that for your first exam, diffusion of innovation model, agenda setting model, media dependency, and uses and gratifications, gatekeeping probably were not included. However, this time they are included. I am not being selective for your midterm exam. However, for your final exam here, I will be probably selective. But for this exam, everything we have learned thus far is included in the syllabus. All right. Now, I have, after discussing the syllabus, let me talk very briefly about the pattern. Now, here it is easier for you because for midterm, I am going to follow exactly the same pattern that I had for your first exam. Your first exam was of 35 marks in total, and its weightage was also 35% for your overall evaluation. Your midterm also carries the same weightage for your overall evaluation, and it will also be of 35 marks. If you remember, out of 35 marks, there were 20 marks for multiple choice questions. This time again, you will get 20 multiple choice questions. And then you will have to write an essay, not an essay, actually you will have to answer a question which will be of 15 marks. The question will have two distinct parts and each part will be of 7.5 marks. To repeat, when you get the question, along with that you will also get the rubric, and you have already got your assessment result for your first exam, which was on April 7, or I'm not sure exactly about the date. I have already assessed those exams for you. I wanted to get that assessment to you so that you get an idea how I actually assess your work. You may have noticed that in the assessment of your essay type question, I have exactly followed the rubric. I have I have tried to be as generous as I could. However, this time, and I did this for your first exam as well, uh, those students who gave examples other than the ones that we discussed in class, they got full marks. Again, for this exam, if you want to score maximum, try to come up with examples that are different from the ones that I gave in class or you discussed in class. Another thing, another problem that I noticed in the assessment of your first exam was that some questions, sometimes I felt and that the student had copied the answer from the internet. Uh, if you're, I mean, I am a teacher. I have been in the business of teaching for many years now. And I know that, I mean, considering sometimes word choices, I know that the this particular student cannot come up with these word choices. If your punctuation is so perfect and professional, then of course you are lifting or copying your material from internet. This is not possible for midterm, and the reason is that when I ask you the question, I am going to ask you about the application of model in local Pakistani context. And it is unlikely that you find that example on internet. So there aren't chances that you can actually copy material from internet. In other words, let's say I give you a question related to the application of diffusion of innovation model in Pakistani context. And I ask you that, all right, how are you going to apply Everett Rogers diffusion of innovation model to your local circumstances, to your family members? Now, this is a question that requires a subjective answer. Subjective in the sense that this is a question that actually urges you to think about your experiences, to think about your own perspectives, and then write your answer in those perspectives. Does that make sense? Somebody was asking something? Similarly, if I ask you the question media dependency model, for example, I ask you to elaborate the model in your own words, and with that, I ask you, how would you relate your personality with media dependency model? Similarly, if you remember when we discussed uses and gratifications model, I encourage you to think about the question that how do you relate your personality with these 7 components of uses and gratifications model. So these are the type of questions that you will be asked for your midterm exam. But the question will specifically ask you to discuss the answer of the question with your subjective uh, experience, in the light of your subjective experience, which means you are supposed to give a subjective approach in the answer of that question. Now I will stop here to let you ask questions. Questions please. Do you have any questions?
No, ma'am.
Quiz will be open, like the window for the quiz.
Fatima, say it again.
Ma'am, how long will the quiz stay open?
I am not sure if I understand what you were saying. Can you please write it in the chat box?
All right.
Ma'am, she's asking for how much time will the quiz stay open?
All right, time. The time is 60 minutes. The same time that you had for your first exam. The midterm exam will begin at 9 a.m. sharp and it will end at 10 a.m. sharp. You will have exactly 60 minutes, an hour to take the exam. Another thing is that, all right, another thing is that you make sure your devices are fully charged. You also make sure that you have a backup plan in case of power outage. I usually do not accommodate students for their makeup exams. Those students who missed their first exam, they also know that I have told them that even if I give them a makeup exam, there will be deduction of a few points. So, and again, I deal with such students case by case. If they had a problem, I need to have a really solid evidence to make sure that they had a problem for that they missed the exam. And please understand that it's not possible for me to make to design or plan another exam for them, for those students who miss. So those students who miss, first I need to assess their case. What was the reason? And according to that, of course, there will be deduction of points. And then I give them an oral makeup exam. And many students, they quibble about oral exam. They tell me, well, give me an assignment. Why don't you give me an assignment? I can't do an oral exam. The answer is no. If you miss your exam, then you have to take an oral exam. First of all, it kind of lessens the burden on instructor. Second of all, it also minimizes cheating. So you have to be careful. You have to be cognizant of the fact that university administration also encourages faculty to go for oral exams because they minimize the scope of cheating. For this midterm exam, please be mindful of the fact that this is an open book exam. Now, open book but although this is an open book exam, you do have a time limit. Uh, for that, it is highly recommended that you are fully prepared. Since you are time bound, you won't have time to open up books, find the pages and find the answers. Only those students can better perform who are prepared, who have concept clarity, who have been working hard, who have been actually studying, who have been attending classes or seeing the recordings of the lectures. And because you may have experienced this when you took your first exam, that answering of multiple choice questions actually requires your concept clarity, the understanding of concepts. If you do not have understanding, it is highly unlikely that you can actually you can find answers in books. You will be wasting your time. Yes, Feroza, you have a question?
Ma'am, I wanted to request you to increase the time a bit because you just said that we'll be having an essay type question of 15 marks, and that requires a lot of time. And if you could, please.
Feroza, my response, this is how I will respond to your concern. First of all, I cannot go beyond the time limit which is given for my class according to university's calendar. The university administration demands faculty, asks faculty to strictly follow their class timings. I cannot go beyond that. I have already actually gone beyond that. My class ends at 50 minutes past 9, but I am giving you time until 10 because many students, they have their other class which is starting at 10. In that case, the timings of my class will be conflicting with the timings of other classes. And I cannot possibly do that. Second, you already have the experience of attempting such an exam. Like this exam is exactly following the same format. It's a 15, apparently it's a 15 minutes question, but many of you may have observed that even if a student wrote an answer which was 5 or 6 sentences, six sentences long, but his answer was completely relevant, to the point and solid, I gave him full marks. Many of you may have observed. And I noticed that many students did rambling, which means that they wrote things which were meaningless, which were inconsequential, and they preferred to copy from internet. And just by looking at a glance, I knew that they had copied from the internet. This time I was generous. Now I am not going to be generous. If you copy from internet, you are going to get 0 marks. Even if you use sites like Spinbot or those kind of things where you actually can jumble up content from internet, you are going to get 0 marks. Talk about your concept clarity and do a very good preparation. This is an exam, your midterm exam, you knew the date 3 weeks in advance. This is not a kind of exam that is coming out of nowhere. You already knew, you were already preparing for that, and again you are already taking the exam according to the same format that you have already taken. So I am sorry, I cannot go beyond the time.
Okay, ma'am.
Any other question? Do you have any question about the content that I just showed you on Moodle? Because I'm going to answer your questions today. I told you that we'll not learn any new concept. I'll only answer your questions. And I was assuming, I actually encourage you to come prepared to ask questions. I am assuming that you have questions. So I am all ears. If you have any questions, you can ask me now, please.
Ma'am, is it possible that if we can go through one of the models if again, because I was not
Oh,
present for one class.
sure. Yes. What
Ma'am,
model?
just a second. Ma'am, just a second. I marked it in my laptop. I'll just let you know.
Alima, I'm sorry, I can't hear you properly. Can you?
Ma'am, just a second. I'll let you know. I have marked it in my laptop. I'll just check it and let you know which one it was.
Sure. And whatever model you want me to go over again, please write its name in the chat box. For some reason, I cannot hear you. Your voice is not clear to me.
Ma'am, can you hear me now?
I can, yes, it's better.
Okay. Okay. Excuse me, ma'am. Can we please go through Gerbner's model of communication?
Ji, bache, sorry, say it again.
Ma'am, Gerbner's model of communication.
Which model, bache?
Ma'am, I'll write it in the chat box.
Sure, sure. Ji, can you all see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Good. Let's begin our discussion on Gerbner's model then. Okay. So the model was proposed by George Gerbner. He is one of the famous names in the field of communication. He is actually known for his theory on cultivation, which says that media cultivates attitudes in people. And he has written a lot on the effects of television in mass media. George Gerbner was also the dean of Annenberg School of Communication at the University of Pennsylvania, which is very well-respected school in the field of communication. All right. A brief intro of presenter is the same thing that I have just told you. The model was presented by American mass media researcher, also dean of the Annenberg School of Communication at University of Pennsylvania, and he presented the model in 1956. Now, before I go to my next slides, please pay attention to what I'm just saying, because it will help you develop your understanding, and then we'll go to the next slides to make it further clear. Gerbner's model is actually a chain of perception, production, perception, production, perception, production. These two ideas are very important when you are discussing Gerbner's model. Perception means journalist perception, or whatever way the machine captures the situation. The machine can be camera, the machine can be a microphone, the machine can be a tape recorder, audio video recorder, anything. Now, whatever information gets to audience, it depends on the perception of the reporter and then the production of that message according to the perception of reporter. That is how the message that gets to the audience is actually a continuation of perception, production, perception, production, perception, production. All right. Does it all make sense?
Yes, ma'am.
Can I proceed? All right, good. Now, another good thing about Gardner's model is that it works like building blocks. It has two versions. It has a verbal version, a graphical version, and then a verbal version. The verbal version comes in the form of a statement, and the graphical version comes in the form of a diagram. Also, like I said, Gardner's model can work as a building block. You can take out only the parts that you need to explain a situation related to communication, and you can omit other parts. You can be selective. You can really expand on it. It's the beauty of Gardner's model, and it's written in the features of Gardner's model. The model can be given different shapes. This is the same thing that I just told you, that you can only take out the parts that you need and you can let go of other parts. You can also change the shape. You can shape it the way you want to explain your situation of communication. The model works as a building block to explain situations, which can be simple as well as complicated. The model helps us understand questions that are related to the nature of interplay between perception and production. Remember, when I began my explanation, I told you that model is a continuation of a chain of perception and production. So it goes like a chain, which is perception, production, perception, production, perception, production. So this talks about the idea that model is an interplay between perception and production. Then the model has both verbal and graphical version. This is again the same thing that I just told you. Here is the verbal version, verbal formula of Gardner's model. And I will quickly go over this. A person perceives an event and then reacts to a situation, and then through some means and whatever material is available to him, camera, recorder, microphone, whatever, he in some form and within a context conveys the content, which means he is transmitting the content with some consequences. Now, here is this important thing, a sort of warning that one needs to consider in Gardner's model, that not all elements and stages appear in the graphical model. Graphical model is selective. Here was the verbal model that had 10 components. However, it's important to consider that you may not see all 10 elements in the graphical model. These are letters that you need to consider in the explanation of graphical model. The letter E denotes event that has happened. Letter M is the perceiver, the person, the reporter, the journalist who is perceiving the event. That can also be a machine. And E1 is the perception of the event that M has developed. All right. Now, this is the graphical version of Gardner's model. An event is happening. Let's say a press conference is happening. Now, in that press conference, this M is the journalist, or it can also be the camera of the journalist. Now, when the journalist prepares a news story, E1 is the perception of journalists about the news story. And let's say, see, man or machine. The M can be the person, journalist or reporter, or M can also be a machine, a camera, a recorder, a microphone, a laptop, or anything. Now let's say after he has prepared the perception, the report of the event, he wants to transmit the message, and he will do it by channel or by media. And SE is statement about the event. It can come in any form with any content. It can come in the print form. It can come in electronic form or any form. All right. Now, consider an event related to the condensation of moisture in the air. I told you when I was explaining this that condensation is actually a process, a scientific process in which gas is converted into liquid. I told you that whenever you have cold water in a glass, You may have noticed water droplets appearing on the surface of the glass. Now what is happening here? The temperature in the surroundings, of course, is higher than the temperature of water in glass. And when that temperature comes into contact in the liquid, it turns into water droplets. That is called condensation. Now, I am not sure, but I think that it's also related to the formation of clouds, but I'm not sure. However, let's consider an event here which is related to the condensation of moisture in the air and water droplets that appear, I think even in the atmosphere, that is also because of condensation. Now, let's see a journalist, by seeing water droplets that are happening because of condensation in the air, he assumes that this is rain. This is the perception. Actually, the event you see here is different from the perceived event. And now when he wants to transmit this, he prepares a message. The statement, SE statement about event, it can come in any language form, I told you. It can be in the form of any content. And now he wants to transmit this message. He transmits, let's say, this was M was the journalist of a news agency. He prepared a news report, SE. The news report was later picked up by a newspaper, M2, the journalist of the newspaper, and now his perception of the event is SE1. SE1 was the first perception of the event. SE1 is the second perception of the event. SE1 has prepared a statement that it's raining. Now the same, let's say the same news story now is picked up by another newspaper, M3, and the journalist of that newspaper creates another perception, SE2, and then SE3, SE4. So that is how Gerbner's model works, like a building block, and it goes in the chain of perception, production, perception, production, perception, and then production. All right, and this was another slide that was related to some use of Gerbner's model, that someone here denotes audience. Perception of event is related to perception of research. I gave you this picture to explain that Gerbner's model has these distinct fields, these distinct areas that can be helpful for different communication scholars to conduct research in their respective fields. But this was an additional information that I gave you, and I also wrote the name of the source from where I took this information. However, this was an additional information. If you find it difficult, you can omit it. That's okay. And this was the end of this slide. All right. Any question about Gerbner's model? Yes, Salima?
Ma'am, thank you so much. I was just confused with the last diagram which you just cleared out about the event and the machine and using of any sort of other replacement for the reporter.
Yes, good. Last diagram, let me take you there again. This is a simple diagram which explains Gerbner's model, I think, in a very simple way. However, this diagram explains that the model goes in the form of a chain. Let's say the news agency reporter is perceiving the event. You know, Reuters is a famous news agency. Associated Press is another famous news agency. So the news agency reporter, he gathers information, prepares a report, and this is a report which is prepared according to the perception of this reporter. This is further transmitted to a newspaper, and then M2 prepares his perception, SE1. Let's say this is perceived by another reporter of a newspaper, M3, and he creates his perception, which is SE2. That is why I was saying that it goes in a chain of perception, production, perception, production, and perception, production. Now, I hope all of this makes sense. I still have...
Ma'am, I have a question.
Sure.
go further, like it was SE2 and M2. Can it proceed to M3, SE3 like that?
Yes, it can go as far as you want to take it. It can. That is why I keep saying that governor's model, it works like building blocks. Like you can build it as much as you like.
Ma'am, if we are told to draw this model, so we can take it as further as we want.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, ma'am.
Any other question? I still have 5 minutes left.
No, ma'am, no questions.
If during your preparation, if you come across any question, please do not hesitate to write an email to me. Even if you
Okay, ma'am.
ask me to call you, you can leave your number. I can call you to explain the like. I'll see if I can answer your question on email. I will go for that. But if I feel like I need to talk to you to help you remove your confusion, I will do that. Okay. All
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much.
All right, best of luck for your exam. Again, no live class on Friday. You will just take your exam. I'll see you all on Monday now. Thank you and goodbye.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much. Allah Hafiz.
Okay,
Allah
ma'am.
Hafiz, ma'am.
Thank you. Allah Hafiz.